Hi, this is Bando Tyrell. Welcome back to part 5, I hope, of... I'm doing this all by the seat of my pants, so I have no script, I have no outline, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I think this is part 5 of our video series for building a medieval tavern bar for Second Life using Blender and Substance Painter. So this is our state of our model. At this point we have a top to the bar, we have the front and side to the bar, but it's very nice in Second Life if you put a floor shadow underneath the models that you work with. So it's super simple. I used to think it was a pain in the ass until I learned how to do it the easy way. And so I would avoid doing it. But now that I know the secret, it's really simple. So all you do is you just add a plane, and you go to mesh and you add a plane. And then you just scale the plane so that it extends past your model, like so. It's a little too far out front. Let's scale back down a little bit, and then move it. That's probably okay. But then it needs to go this way. So I'm just doing SY and GY, and then SY, scale on the Y-axis, gets down to about here. GY moves it. And if we look at it from the top, you can see it looks like that. So let's go GY. And then I think it's too wide, so we can scale it about to there. Okay. And then if you look at it from the side or the front, you can see where it put the plane is on that red line. That's why I moved my model up. I didn't tell you that earlier, but that's why I moved it up. That red line marks the floor, and it put the plane on the floor. So you just set your model above that so that when it casts shadows, it casts the shadows onto the floor plane. Okay? So back to here, what we need to do is you got to do Control A. All transforms, set origin to geometry. Now, you have a choice. You don't have to create a UV map for this floor plane, because by default it uses the whole 256 by 256 image for the UV map, and it's just a rectangle and there are no faces. It's one giant face, so it just uses the entire texture map, and that's actually probably the best way to do it. You could go in and create a UV map, and then it's only going to use a small portion of the image. And I find I get better results if I don't do that. So I'm not going to bother with it, but you do need to put a material on it. So let's go down to our material tab, and we're going to click new, and we're going to call this bar floor shadow. Okay, so now we have the 3 parts. Let's go ahead and name that too. So we'll call that for floor. These names don't really matter to Second Life or Substance Painter, but it's convenient for us. So that's master shape. We shouldn't call it. We'll call that bar top. All right, so I have my bar front, my bar top, my floor shadow, and then my master shape. So let's take these 3 things. We're going to export it again. And then we're going to call it, let's just call it test bar 3. Go back to Substance Painter. And again, we're going to just go to project configuration. We're going to pick the name that we just made, test bar 3. That brings it in here. Again, it's it's Alt and then left click to rotate. And Alt and click your middle mouse button to drag it. I really don't know why that's so shiny. I think it may be because I picked metallic roughness. It won't matter. And then you now have 3 parts up here. You have the bar boards, you have the bar floor shadow, and you have the bar top. So I always like to confirm that, make sure I have them so that I know I did my materials right. Then we're going to go back and we're going to bake mesh maps again. Again, we have a new part, so we have to change the this. It's already set because I'm working off of bar boards. You can pick the one you want to go by. It's already set to 256, but this has not been applied to the floor shadow, so we need to click Apply to All. Curvature, Apply to All. Thickness, Apply to All. And then bake. And then we sit here and wait while it does that. La 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 la. One day I will make a video showing you how to set up your output template for Substance Painter for Second Life. Actually, why don't I do it now? We'll use this video for that. It's almost done. Almost done. Almost done. Getting there. Look at that. All right. So that means that's done. Okay. So now if I want to export these textures so I can use them in Second Life, what I have to do is go to File, Export Textures. And then the first thing you want to do is set up an output template for Second Life. And so you just go to Output Templates and then you click plus to create a new one, and you name it whatever you want. I name mine Second Life, so it's right there. Once you've already created it, it shows up in this list and you just pick it. But the way you create it is the same, looks exactly like this, and so it's the same process. So you just hit plus, you name it Second Life, it shows up in the list, and you see this panel, except it's probably empty. So what we want to do is we want to add the different materials that we need for Second Life. Second Life uses 3. It uses a diffuse template, it uses the normal template, or not template, materials. It uses a diffuse material, a normal material, and a specular material. And when you edit an object in Second Life and you go to the Texture tab, there are places to upload and apply those 3 different material images. Diffuse is what you see on the surface, normal is the bumpiness, and specular is how shiny it is. The fourth one here is AO. Second Life doesn't use AO, but we use the AO output in Photoshop if we want to manually create textures. We're using Substance Painter to create the textures, so we'll probably not use that. But the only one that Substance Painter does not create for us in a usable format that I know how to make it do, maybe there's a way, I don't know, is the floor shadow. Because the floor shadow needs to be transparent with a shadow on it. So I've tried many different ways to do it in Blender. I've tried many different ways to do it in Substance Painter, and I could never get a good result. So we do it this way. So if you do want to use AOs and go into Photoshop and create your own textures for the bar top or the bar front or whatever, you can do it that way. But for the floor shadow, you definitely need to do that. So we have an AO here. So the way this works is you can add new things to this list, or you can just take one and adjust it. But we're going to add one here. So how do I add an output? I did this yesterday. I added a new one. I think you click one of these buttons. Yeah, create. So you have to know a little bit about what these materials are. So a diffuse material is color. It uses RGB, so it's a color output. Normal is a RGB output as well. It's color. When you see a normal, it's blue, and blue is a color, so you need RGB. Specular map is a grayscale map, so it doesn't use color data, it only uses grayscale data. The AO is grayscale. So 2 of them use RGB, 2 of them use grayscale. So the way you add that, if you want to add a new grayscale map, you just click this button, and then you have a new one, and you can name it whatever you want. And so these are keywords that the application will replace. So instead of $texture set, it puts the name up here of the texture set, like bar boards, bar floor shadow, bar top, into the output file. So the AO file that comes out, that's the name the AO file is going to have. It's going to be bar boards underscore AO, bar floor shadow underscore AO, bar top underscore AO. If I want to add additional things in here, you can do it by clicking this $sign. So you click the $sign and then you pick the thing, and these are like variables or keywords, and it will add it to the file name. So like if you did mesh, that's the name of this mesh. We haven't saved it yet, but once we save the file, say we save this file. Yeah, we save the file as bar. then mesh would be bar. So you would put like $mesh underscore $texture set underscore AO. The output file that's generated would be bar underscore bar boards underscore AO. And you can do that however you want. I like to do texture set. I also like to come in and add some additional text here. So whatever you type in without a $, that goes into the file name. The $, means it substitutes it with the actual name. So okay. So the way these were created, so I did an RGB. I did RGB, and then for diffuse, what we want to use is this thing called 2D view. So you come over here to your converted maps, you find 2D view, you drag it over here and drop it in that, and then pick which channels you want. Well, we want all of them, so it's RGB. So for this grayscale one, we're going to do like an AO. What I want to use for AO is over here called mixed AO. So you grab that, you drag it into there, and you pick the gray channel. And then if I wanted to do the other two, I would do RGB. For normal, we want normal OpenGL normal, so you drag that over to here, drop it in there, and pick RGB channels. And then for the last one, it was gray as well. So I'm going to do specular. So in the converted maps, there's a map called specular map. You grab that and you drag it and you drop it in here and you say gray channel. That's how I created those. I just reproduced that step for you. And then you save that as your Second Life output. Okay, but I don't need these 4 because I already have them. But I was just showing you how to reproduce it. So once you do that, that's the output that you're going to use. Go back over to the settings tab. In this drop-down output template, you have to pick Second Life. Then you want to tell it to be 16 bits, and you want to tell it to use dilation plus default background color, which I think is a dark gray. I don't know for sure. Then the checkbox means it's going to output the files for that. And if you click on it, it shows you what files it's going to output. And this is based on the output template for Second Life that we just created. So it's going to create a diffuse, a normal, a spec, and an AO for the bar boards. Well, I don't really need that for right now because we haven't put any textures on there. So let's just do the AOs. So the bar shadow, we're going to turn that off. We're just going to grab the AO, and the bar top, we're going to do that. Okay, so that gives us an AO for each one, and then you click export. It does a bunch of work, a bunch of mathematics, and figures stuff out, and then it outputs 3 texture files. Bar boards AO, bar top AO, and a bar floor shadow AO. All right, so now let's go to Second Life. Here I am in Second Life, and we're going to import that build, upload mesh model, and it's in documents, and it was called test bar 3. And then it's going to come in like this, and let's look at how big it is. Upload options, it's 3.5 by 8.4.2. That sounds reasonably okay. It might be gigantic when we get it in, but let's leave it for that. And if we go to level of detail, there ain't a whole lot of detail. So it should be pretty cheap. So let's calculate the weights and fees. Yeah, it's 15 LI as it is. If I want to drop the LI down, I can. Right, it's going to cost me 17 linden to upload it. For right now, I don't care. So we're not gonna muck with that. So let's just go ahead and click upload. Oops. There it is, bar front. Boom. Resident world. Oh yeah, it's kind of big. It also is floating in the air, so you got to kind of drop it down until this just shows back up. Yeah, okay, that's a pretty tall bar. So as you remember, I was talking about we can scale things. We can just scale it in here. So stretch it down. And then that's about right. You know, now to be precise, I would get one of my existing bars, I'd put it next to it, and I'd scale it down until it just fit. And then if it's not, if the proportions are off, I would start over. No, actually what I do is I take one of my existing bars, I lay it out here, and I use prim cubes to get basically what the size and shape is, so I know. And so when I actually build the new bar in Blender, I import that model. I export it from Second Life. You can export prims as mesh. So I basically build a little prim model of the bar, export that to a DAE, go into Blender, import that in, and then I use that as a template inside of Blender so I know how big to make the bar. So when I started this, I said it doesn't matter, you just do it by eye. Well, I don't really do that. I actually have a little plain blank box that's the size I need, so I know. So I don't have to waste that much time. But for what we're doing, it didn't really matter. And it came out pretty darn close, okay? So there's our bar, it's in Second Life, but you notice the floor shadow is just that. Now let's import those 3 images that we just did. So there was, let's go build, upload bulk, and I think I put it in the export. I think this is the right export. Yep, there they are, bar boards, bar floor shadow, bar top, those 3 things right there. We're gonna bring them in, and here they come. This automatically put a gray tint on it, so let's get rid of the gray tint by editing, going to texture, turning off the gray tint, make it all white. So it's all white but has no shadows. The shadows that we see here are because my graphic settings in Firestorm are very high, so it's producing some ambient occlusion where the surfaces meet. You notice this is darker than this because Firestorm is making that. But that's what an AO file does. So you don't, even if you don't have your high-end graphics and have everything up in ultra, when you bake the ambient occlusion, you get those shadows, but you get actually better looking shadows. So let's go ahead and put the bar top on, and then we'll put the bar floor on, and we'll put the bar boards on. So notice now you have shadows between all the boards, you have shadows underneath the bar top, you have some reflections of the shadow of the floor on the bottom of the boards, and then you have a floor shadow. But the floor shadow is shadow on white, and I need the floor shadow to be shadow on transparent. And like I said, I don't know of a way to automatically do that, so we're going to basically do it in Photoshop. So let's go over to Photoshop. I already have it set up. What you need is, we're going to, let's not do that. I'll start a new one. So we're going to do File, and we're going to open the floor shadow texture because you want it to be the right size. So okay, so here we are. There's my floor shadow, and it's open. Now I got to unlock that because it's the background, and then I'm going to add 3 more layers. Bing, bing, bing. Then take the one that I started with and move it to the very top. Now on the one just underneath that, we're going to fill that with white. So you're going to go Edit, Fill, White. Then the next one down, we're going to fill with black. So you go Edit, Fill, Black. And then the last one we leave transparent. So now we click back on this, and sometimes you have to rasterize this, sometimes you don't. If it came in as a background layer, you don't have to rasterize it. But if you import it, you do have to rasterize it. If you don't rasterize it, you can't edit it. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to erase as much of the white around the outside that I don't want to keep. And you need to do that so that you don't have a harsh line of the shadow going up to the edge of the floor shadow. You don't want that. You don't want the shadow to go all the way out there because you'll see a line on the in Second Life. You'll see a line there and it looks bad. So to get rid of that, we can go in here and use the magic wand tool and pull that out. So I got this set to 32. I'm going to drop that down to like 12. Try again. Yeah, notice now it's further away. So I don't want to get rid of all my shadow. So hit delete. There's some shadow over here. I can get rid of that and just pull that out. All right, and then let's do that magic wand again down here in this corner. And then I have it going all the way to the edge here. I can get rid of, I'm going to get rid of it in a minute, but just to be safe, let's go ahead and use the box tool and let's just pull out a little bit away from the edge. Pull that back a little bit. Like that. Just a little bit. Just to guarantee that it's away from the edge. All right. But I don't think that's 100% necessary because this next step is going to get rid of that shadow anyway. So the reason why you have the white layer underneath the shadow layer is because we're going to blend the two. And we're gonna make this harsh line that's all the way around here go away by blending the gray into the white. And to do that, you use a tool called Levels, which is Control L, which opens up the Levels panel. And so the levels is shows about how much white there is and how much black there is and how much mid-level gray scale there is. And you can do a lot of stuff to change this. So like you do like that gets rid of the black, do like this gets rid of the white, right? And we're not going to touch those. Up here, this makes the dark areas darker, which you could do if you want to make the blacks even darker. And this makes the white fade out. See that? So the gray fades into the white. And you want to do this until even this area over here goes away. So watch it until it just, there's no edges anymore. And just right about there, I have no more edges. And then you hit OK. All right, so now if I were to turn these off, this is what you have. Still doesn't look right. It's still there, right? And that looks like crap. So I'm not done. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our shadow layer. We're going to go to the Channels tab, which is right here. And then we're going to hit this little box down here that should say Load Channel as Selection. And this might not work because we're in grayscale. Let me try and see what happens. So you click that button. Okay. That selects, I think it selects all the transparent pixels, all the transparent data. But we want to select the opposite, so you have to go select inverse. And then when you go back to layers, we're going to add a new layer. This is the most important step. Add a new layer, an empty blank layer. Well, an empty blank layer is transparent, right? So we're adding a new empty layer. And then with that selection that we've just made and then inverted, still there, it's still selected, we're going to go up to edit and we're going to fill that selection with black. So that means anything that's not transparent is going to get filled with a certain amount of black. So fill and black. And there it filled it back in. Now you have both of them. Well, we don't need both of them, so turn the bottom one off. Go up to your tool, your marquee tool, because you have it's selected, and just click in the background so it unselects. So now it's unselected. Now, how do we know it looks right? Well, we're going to test it. So right now we're testing it against a white background. So if you were to take this image and lay it in Second Life on top of a white background, it's going to look like this. It's going to be a shadow against white. If you lay it on a darker surface, so like if we were to put the bar on a black or gray ground, we want to know what it's going to look like. Well, a shadow on black is black. So your shadow is showing on a black area, it's just going to be black. So sometimes what happens if you do this a different way and you get done and you have your shadow and your shadow's on top of a dark surface, it's gray. You can see the shadow and it looks like crap because it's gray on black. Well, it shouldn't be gray on black, it should be black on black. So this technique prevents that. And we just do this to test it to make sure. So it looks right against a white surface, it looks right against a black surface. What does it look like on a transparent surface? It looks like that. And so now we have it the way we want it, so we can export this to a 2D image by hitting File, Export, Export as PNG, and we're going to call this bar 3, I think is what it was, and we're going to call it bar 3 floor shadow. Now you go back to Second Life, look at that, we're going to upload that new image, which is in here. It's called bar 3 floor shadow. And we're going to drag that on. And now you have a floor shadow. And you want to see what it looks like? If we do build, let's do that. Let's stretch this really big. And we're going to do blank. So now it's a white surface. So now you can see the shadow on the white surface. Let me lift this up. You can see when the shadow disappears. There, you can see the shadow disappear right there. So this is the shadow against the white surface. Now what happens if it's black? Boom, 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 boom. We're going to change the color to black. And you don't see any shadow because the shadow on black is black. So that was just, come on, let me go. Okay, so that was just for demo purposes. We don't really need that box anymore. So now you have your bar, you have a floor shadow. And now this floor shadow file, we never have to reproduce it no matter what I'm going to do. Unless I change the geometry that touches the floor. I'm going to add some stuff that could change the shape of the shadow a little bit, so we might want to redo the shadow later, but most likely I'm not going to care. I think this is good enough, so this shadow is probably going to last us forever. So anyway, that's the end of part 5. The next video is part 6. We're going to add some metal to the bar. So these boards can't be just floating there, they'd fall apart, right? We need some nails, we need some bands to go around it to make it look medieval. Right now it doesn't look very medieval. So we're going to make this look a little bit more medieval by adding some metal to it, and that's what we're going to do in the next video. So I will see you in part 6 in just a few minutes.